Welcome back to Teaching the Unteachables, where we dive into methods for teaching and learning for professionals like you. This episode sponsored by Professional HVACR Services Incorporated. Check out ProHVACR.com for more information. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're hanging out with Joe Kokinda. Joe, how are you this morning?
Outstanding. It's beautiful in Ohio, finally.
You know, we met at the 2023 National HVACR Education Conference, and there's certain people in life, when you're a storyteller, there's certain people that when you meet them, you know, there's going to be some good conversations out of this.
I felt the same thing. And Howard, not to interject real quick, Howard said, we got to meet. So after emailing me 3 times and texting me, don't forget Clifton, we hooked up. So it was a great experience, Clifton.
You know, we have such an opportunity to talk about how life has sculpted where we are and the ways that life turns out not exactly how we intended them to be. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We have our perspectives of what HVAC and refrigeration are going to look like when we jump into it, but we never know until we get there. And sometimes the journey is just as enjoyable or even more enjoyable than the actual job itself. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about you getting into the industry and some of the tales from the trenches that you encountered, especially in them first years.
Yeah, very good. So talk about being coachable. I was a typical jock and went into the Navy real quick after my first quarter in college. Ended up being a disaster. Yeah. The typical 1974-75 era. Okay. That being stated, going in the military, not only did it grow me up, it taught me a lesson. The lesson that I'm still living for 48 years later. And that lesson is, how do you teach an unteachable?
Oh, man.
And I was uncoachable. I was a hardhead. I was a jock that had never won a high school football game. I was 0-40. So success to me, it was back in those days of being able to perform.
Right.
Right now, we're trying to perform in the Navy. They taught me how to use deadweight testers. I hooked up capacitors. I learned capacitance by using DC capacitors. And believe this or not, electric refrigeration made by the Japanese in the 1970s that was on board our ship, USS Independence.
Wow.
So my 5-year apprenticeship, if you will, from 17 M32s, rod and chillers, rod and condensers. We hooked up a Carrier 6-cylinder refrigeration unit to one of the reefer decks and had to pump out a flooded machinery room with a freaking Carrier compressor, folks.
Really?
Yes, just a pump. That's just a pump. It didn't last very long, but it
doesn't
did
like
the
liquid,
trick.
But
that's right. It did the trick. So that was in my first 5 years, and I didn't know what a pair of vice grips were. Yep. So when I got out of the apprenticeship, the 5 years, the Navy, they went ahead and sent me to an A school, and I ended up on an aircraft carrier. And as a push button E4, I had to do 5 years, and I showed up on ship in kind of like a total little lie. Yeah, you're going to love this. The little lie that I told when I found out during the walk around tours, being in engineering and going up and down the 8 machinery rooms and seeing all the boilers in 120-degree temperature, I had quickly decided at the age of 18, being thespian in nature, that this was not going to be a very good experience.
Yeah, this is going to be work.
Oh, so they called me in. They said, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And in my mind, I'm in front of this guy with khakis on. I'm just an 18-year-old kid still, hadn't turned 19. And I said, my father had a bar across the street from the Ford plant, and we were very busy. And I helped him take care of the refrigeration and air conditioning by changing filters. And poof, they assigned me to the AC&R shop. Yeah. And all I could say walking out of that room, I was an experienced dude. Lo and behold, being teachable and coachable was a learned trait.
Yeah.
I found out very quickly that everyone on board that ship was smarter than me. I'm talking every single person that been there longer than me was smarter than me. All right,
Right.
because they already had the experience. Not knowing what a pair of vice grips were at the age of 18, 48 years later, having worked on anything that moves fluid or heat in any fashion, whether it be
Mm.
absorbers, cascades, CO2, propane, it does not matter. I love working with chlorine tanks, rail cards. I've worked all the ammonia. I choose refrigeration. And basically,
Why is that?
it's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad you asked. In order for this process to work for us to be able to entice the young to come for us,
Into this
with
field,
us,
right?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we have to paint a picture.
Yeah.
The picture we need to paint to recruit these 20 somethings, my friend, needs to be able to make them understand that you have the ability to change the world in
Oh my
refrigeration.
goodness, that's it. People don't
Mm,
understand that, do they?
no, we have
You
to
know,
change the world. Mhm.
think about how much refrigeration is in a daily life.
Oh,
You know,
it's everywhere you go. I
everywhere
mean,
you go.
even when you open up your household refrigerator and you look at the condition of the ice and the water filtration systems, and now all the smart devices, even in the homes, is
Mm-hmm.
mind-boggling. And
Mm-hmm.
so, to get down to the basics in commercial refrigeration, industrial refrigeration, not so much, but commercial refrigeration, we delve a little bit also into helping hospitals preserve the
Yeah.
blood. It's a very
Absolutely.
important thing. It's been in the news the last 5 years. You've heard all the
Yeah, for
stories.
sure.
So that's going to attract them because without that, we're back to hunting, okay, and preserving everything in salt.
With salt.
That's it,
you
my
know,
friend. That's all
yeah,
there is to it. Mhm.
most people don't understand that we haven't designed an emergency generator system for a grocery store to handle the refrigeration since the 1980s.
Imagine
Right?
that.
There is not a grocery store in this
Hmm.
country
Hmm.
made in the last 40 years
Hmm.
that is capable of running the refrigeration off from the generator. That big generator outside is just for lighting.
Yeah,
So if we lose electricity, we're out of food in 3 days.
no doubt. No
So
doubt.
refrigeration is the heart of the sustainability of our entire civilization.
No doubt. It's,
And
it comes down to this. Product loss is the bane of any society, whether
yeah,
it's being shipped overseas and lost on the cargo ships or over land. The food chain is broken, and we can do our part here, sustainability wise, with what we do at Pro Green and Pro, and what the kids have started. God bless them. Going forward, it's important that we stem the problem of product loss in our
mm,
markets. And
yeah,
and what I'm seeing going on with the technology, we love Rusty Walker, we love Hill Phoenix Hussman. We learn from all of these people. The problem that I see is again the systemic product loss when there's failure in the markets, on the power supply. And so there's lots of solutions out there, but the kids need to get together, the young, and come up with a plan. And
yeah,
we want to tap those young minds. We want to make sure, Clifton, that the young 28-year-olds, 26-year-olds, they've tried things. We need to figure out a way to entice them. And that's going to be through social media.
I think that's
Glassdoor,
it.
put your story on. We went ahead and
Yeah,
Glassdoor and got new marketing.
yeah,
And just by putting the CEO story on, we went from 9 hits annually to 111 hits in a week.
yeah. That's
And I
right.
did this just when I was at South Point. I actually,
Oh, really? Yeah,
yeah,
at the
went ahead on
conference. Yeah.
Glassdoor and
Mm-hmm.
took and so we're going to go ahead and market the heck out of
Mm-hmm.
these 20 somethings. Excuse me. Everybody says this, and you got to agree. These kids, they don't know how to think. That's the only thing that I'm going to agree with. Everything else negative that they say about the 20 somethings, and it's
It's a
bannered about
misperception.
our friend Ty.
Mm,
He comes out and tells us all the stories. It's just canned goods.
yeah,
You can teach if the person's curious.
that's all that it takes.
That's it. We got to get them curious.
I was talking to a guy yesterday, Greg Castro. He's actually going to be on one of our podcasts. You should
Okay.
go back and take a look at it.
Hmm.
29-year-old guys in the automotive industry's early 20s, just by chance went into a HVAC apprenticeship as
Hmm.
a install helper. 7 years later, he's an educator because he said in those first few weeks, he caught the bug. He
Wow.
had no idea how much air conditioning and refrigeration was around him until he went to take this job to be an install helper and
Hmm.
went, I have to absorb this and I
Hmm.
have to absorb everything I can because I had no clue. And that is exactly what is going to change our industry when we start painting a better picture of what this
Hmm.
industry can look like. I
Hmm.
mean, think about that. Think about those ships that you were on.
Hmm.
We're talking $100 million ships,
Hmm.
18-year-old, 19-year-old walking into a machine room that's got millions of dollars worth of equipment and going, you want to work on this?
Hmm. That's right.
Yeah.
When you think about that too, Clifton, remembering now that it's 2023 versus 1975, what I've learned from discussions like this with people that are
Mm-hmm.
much smarter than me, I like to say, and it's not tongue in cheek, I am not the brightest pea in the pod. What I do understand, though, and believe this, is that there's so many smart people out
Yeah.
there that to get them to perform to their abilities is our task,
Their maximum
i.e.,
potential.
there's no doubt. If we
That's it.
browbeat anyone, okay. And now good natured
Yeah.
browbeating, that's part of the trades. I get it.
Oh, yeah. That
You
just
know,
comes with it. That's the fun part.
everybody gets a nickname, right?
That's right.
During our interview process, we asked the 20 something, what do your friends call you? And they
Yeah.
look at me, wide eyed, and I say, what's your nickname? They says, well,
Yeah.
they call me Popo. I said, well,
Yeah.
that may not work here. You know what I'm saying? So, but if they
Yeah.
don't give me a tag, I
Mm.
warn them when I hire them. I said, you're going to get tagged. Somebody's
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
nickname
Yeah.
you.
Bumper the pump thumper.
That's it. And so,
Yeah.
starting right from the interview
Yeah.
process, it's about painting a picture. It is.
Yeah.
It's more involved, like you said, back with the analogy of all the equipment, wide-eyed. I mean, we have got some things when we open up rack motor rooms that have been converted to E3, E2, and they
Yeah.
see all the blinking lights and everything. Automatically, they already understand that something about with technology here.
Wow, what is this?
Yeah,
This is
so
not what I thought was going on inside
that's
this
it.
room. I didn't even know this room was in here.
Well, we had a plan at the Oberlin IGA to do a transcritical CO2.
Mm-hmm.
They're one of the cities that are supposed to be carbon neutral by 2030. One of the 16 cities under Obama. We've been very
Mm-hmm.
involved there. That being stated, I almost bought an old Tops Market in Sandusky. It's a basement rack system. It's a closed supermarket in Sandusky,
Mm-hmm.
Ohio. I was
Yep.
going to put walkable glass over the floor
So
where
you can see the
where
machinery.
you could see the machinery room.
Man.
As the shoppers were going with their kids and their 5-year-olds and everything, and the kids would look down,
Look down going, what
just
is
make
all
sure.
that?
Well, you have to put a sign up. Make sure you don't do things in the floor drain because you're being watched.
Right.
Right, there you go. These types of things are fun. It's great analogy, but I had a vision. I wanted to get the young involved in
Yeah.
saying and pointing, Mama, what's that? Mama saying, I don't know. Automatically, that kid's going to be curious.
Oh, absolutely it is.
All right. And 1 out of 10, that's all we need. 1 out of 10
Yeah.
kids, okay, going into markets where you can see the equipment, somewhat similar to the Walgreens that they built in Chicago that I visited, the first net zero
Mm-hmm.
pharmacy in the country. And I visited that place. You know what I found out? This is great. Here's what I found out. Number one, it's only as good as the person that puts it in. Okay.
Oh boy.
Number two,
Mm.
42 wells had increased in temperature 5 degrees in 2 years' time.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so what I learned is that if technology understands, okay, that how to move heat, if technology understands how to move heat, then where's the disconnect between the engineering and the installers? We
Mm.
have room for improvement in this
Absolutely.
whole industry of refrigeration, just that
Just
part
our
of it,
piece.
just that
Yeah.
part of it. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. And I'm very, very passionate. Our team, we're fortunate enough to have some brilliant kids on board. I call them kids, 40, 35-year-old, they're grown people.
Right.
But to me, they're kids. And so I learned from them at the age of 67 almost, on a daily basis by asking questions. The kids always come back to me, Clifton, and you've probably heard this before. They come back and says, well, Dad's asking a question, or the general manager or supervisor, Pops is asking a question. He already has a good idea what the answer is. They're thinking this before
Right.
they answer because
They're
I've told them.
calculating.
Yeah, I've told them.
Absolutely.
I said, when I ask a question, I got a good idea how you're going to answer. It's the teaching process.
That's right.
They already know this. And so going forward, we have a staff that is thinking cognitively every day. And that's what's so important in refrigeration. What we're moving into now is so rewarding. We're building widgets, sustainable type widgets. We're working with Honeywell and other entities to have the global warming taken care of. All these 20-somethings about teaching the unteachable. All these 20-somethings are going to hear our message.
Absolutely. But they want to make a difference in the world.
Yes, sir.
I've got a 15 and an 18-year-old stepdaughters here at home. One getting ready to head off to college. The other one is not really as interested in college. She wants to make a difference in the world, and she wants to go into the world and change it. And that is the thing that has grown so much in this generation. And I think that you hit on that. We say a lot of things about this generation because they have developed at a very different pace and with a very different standard than many of us have in the past. And so some of us are unfamiliar with the pace that they have grown into, but we forget about the pace that they've grown, that they are very advanced, that they want to make a difference, that they are very intellectual, and they are a generation that actually speaks about things. Oh my gosh.
Ty Brannaman, of course, did the podcast down with Brian Orr, another friend of ours. And then I listened to it on a Sunday morning 3 times, shared it with everyone, took notes, went on Amazon and bought Hannah's book and hooked up with her on LinkedIn. And I'm 50-50 on it, but I'm in agreement 1,000% with a lot of what she's trying to do is let us, the different generations all the way up to my age, understand them a little bit better. So it did open my eyes. And Ty, I sent him a message. I will send him another message. You don't have to drink all the Kool-Aid in everyone's book, but what you want to do is pick and choose for your business model what's important that we put out there. And so because of safety concerns, these kids can't be walking around in a motor room, tick-tocking away unless it's produced. And we can't force them to do that. But what we can do in our policy manuals is say, hey, personal cell use is now allowed on the job sites as long as you get your work done. If you put that small statement, some of the people that want to share what they do because they want to be proud of what they do will then enhance. That's right. They'll enhance to teach the unteachable. All right.
That's exactly it.
Yes, sir.
I'll be doing an online class for us here in a couple of weeks for the online portion of the conference. And it'll be on the 4 generations of learners and just discussing how 4 generations learn in slightly different ways.
No doubt.
It's all about understanding the people around you.
Well, without people like Ty, yourself, and Brian Orr, Mike, the HVAC guy, all the people that we know, the AI on LinkedIn has gotten so much better in the last 18 months. Now I'm not getting, if you look at one tearjerker, okay, like, Amer and all these people, because they tell a story, because they're woo-woo people from India, they're also in your feed. And so it's a well-balanced input that LinkedIn has started putting together. I remember listening to your podcast for an hour and a half driving, I think, to Kentucky just recently. One of the first ones that was on LinkedIn is an hour and a half long. It's about the refrigerant transition. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were managing it. You were behind the booth, and I listened that whole hour and a half, okay, as I was driving. And that's another story for another day. Well, I got to learn. If I shut down my mind, because my body has shut down, my friend, at this age, I can't do what I want to do, which is be out there with the guys. And
Right.
so
But
I've relegated myself to be,
the advocate.
well, it's more of a sensei type thing, okay, with the weed
There you go.
hoppers, with the weed
Yeah,
hoppers. The method of creating an analogy to explain thermodynamics, pressures, voltages. We're very heavy into what Dr. Silverstein is into. We're very heavy into the electrical aspect. And most of the educators do understand that 90% of our problems are the way it's controlled. And so we're
absolutely.
very, very heavy in using an analogy. I learned from Dr. Silverstein just a month ago. He says, hey, a closed circuit means a closed door. That means the goons can't get through. And I said, that makes sense, because an open circuit means you go through. So it's backwards. And so now I have an analogy to take to the youngsters and say, okay, a closed circuit is a good thing. An open circuit is a bad thing. Regardless of whether an open door requires you to walk through it or not, electricity and pumps, they don't work that way. Okay. And so Dr. Silverstein's brilliant. All you guys, I highly recommend ESCO. We've done the RSES training through ESCO, our EPAs through ESCO. Howard and Renee and the team, everyone over there, including yourself, is a great experience for our small company here in Cleveland.
Joe Kokinda, it's an honor to have you here with us and to get your perspective on life. Boy. We got to come back for round 2 and round 10.
Well, I hope we have some comments relative to what you put out. I look forward to working with all of you.
I do too, Joe.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.